When my husband bought our new house, I expected the neighbors to be curious. I didn't expect one of them to look at me as if she had seen a ghost. The house was an old two-story property at the end of a quiet street. It needed work, but Daniel loved it immediately. He said the wooden floors, high ceilings, and large backyard reminded him of the house where he grew up. I wasn't as convinced. The place had been empty for almost 2 years. The previous owner had apparently moved away without doing much to maintain it. Still, the price was surprisingly good, and Daniel insisted it was the right time for us to make a fresh start. We had been married for 9 years. There was nothing seriously wrong with our marriage, but lately, everything felt routine. Work, bills, dinner, sleep, repeat. Daniel thought moving would give us something new to focus on. For the first week, we spent nearly every evening unpacking boxes. On Saturday morning, I was standing outside with a cup of coffee when I noticed an elderly woman watching me from across the street. She was sitting on a wooden chair beneath the shade of a large tree. She didn't smile. She simply kept looking at me. I assumed she was curious about the new neighbors. So I waved. She didn't wave back. Instead, she slowly stood up. Then she crossed the street. As she came closer, her expression became stranger. She stopped about 6 feet from me. Her eyes moved over my face. Then she whispered, "You came back." I smiled awkwardly. "I'm sorry." The woman looked confused. "You don't remember me? I don't think we've met." She took another step closer. "You're sure?" "Yes." She studied me for several seconds. Then she looked at the house behind me. "When did you return?" "I've never lived here before." Her face changed. Not disbelief. Fear. She looked toward the upstairs windows. Then back at me. "Who bought this house?" "My husband." "What is his name?" "Daniel." She repeated the name quietly. "Daniel." Then she shook her head. "That can't be." "What can't be?" She suddenly seemed to realize she had said too much. "Nothing." She turned to leave. I called after her. "Wait. You know something about this house." She stopped. Without turning around, she said, "Ask your husband why he really wanted it." Then she walked away. I stood there holding my coffee, completely confused. A few minutes later, Daniel came outside carrying a box. "Who is that?" "The woman from across the street." "Mrs. Warren?" "I don't know her name." He put the box down. "What did she want?" "She thought I had lived here before." Daniel went completely still. It lasted only a second. But I noticed. "She was mistaken," he said. "That's what I told her." He picked up the box again. "What else?" I hesitated. "She asked why you bought this house." His expression tightened. "What did you tell her?" "That you liked it." "Good." I laughed. "Why are you acting strange?" "I'm not." "You are." Daniel carried the box inside. I followed him. "Daniel." He turned. "Some people don't like newcomers. That's all." That wasn't how she looked at me. "What do you mean?" She looked scared. He said nothing. That evening, I noticed something else. Daniel had been unusually interested in one particular room. A small bedroom at the end of the upstairs hallway. The room had faded blue wallpaper and an old wooden wardrobe. I had planned to turn it into an office. But Daniel told me not to unpack anything there. "Why?" "There's some repair work we need to do first." "What kind?" "Nothing major." I walked toward the room. He immediately followed. "Maybe we should leave it for now." I looked at him. "Why?" He smiled. "Because I'm asking you to." That answer irritated me. But I let it go. The next morning, I went grocery shopping. When I returned, Mrs. Warren was standing near our driveway. She looked at me, then at the house. "Is your husband home?" "No." "Why?" She came closer. "I need to tell you something." "What?" She glanced around before speaking. That house wasn't supposed to be sold. I frowned. "What do you mean?" "The owner refused to sell it for years." "Then why did he?" "He didn't." My stomach tightened. "What?" "The property was transferred after he disappeared." I stared at her. "Disappeared?" She nodded. 3 years ago. I suddenly remembered the real estate agent telling us the previous owner had moved abroad. That isn't what we were told. "I know." She looked toward the upstairs window. "Do you know who lived there before him?" "No." "A woman named Claire." The name meant nothing to me. Mrs. Warren continued. "She lived there with her little daughter." "What happened to them?" "The daughter stayed with relatives." "And Claire?" The old woman looked at me. "She vanished." I felt a chill. "When?" 23 years ago. "Did the police investigate?" "Yes." "Was she ever found?" "No." I looked back at our house. "Why are you telling me this?" Mrs. Warren's eyes filled with worry. "Because you look exactly like her." I almost laughed. I'm sorry. Not her face. She shook her head. Her mannerisms. The way you hold your coffee. The way you look toward the upstairs window. That doesn't make sense. I know. She reached into her coat pocket. Then she pulled out a faded photograph. She handed it to me. It showed a young woman standing in front of our house. She was smiling. Behind her was the same wooden porch. The same windows. The same front door. I looked at the woman's face. She didn't look like me. Not really. But there was something unsettlingly familiar about her. Then I noticed the little girl standing beside her. She was holding a small red bicycle. Mrs. Warren whispered. That was Claire. I turned the photograph over. There was a date written on the back. 23 years ago. And beneath it, one sentence. Daniel was here that night. My hands went cold. I looked at Mrs. Warren. What did you say? She took the photograph from me. I shouldn't have shown you that. Who is Daniel? She didn't answer. Mrs. Warren. She looked directly at me. Ask your husband why he already knew this house before he ever brought you here. Then she walked away. I stood in the driveway for several minutes. When Daniel finally came home, I didn't mention the photograph immediately. Instead, I waited until dinner. He was halfway through his meal when I asked casually, Do you know a woman named Claire? His fork stopped. He didn't look up. Why? Just answer me. He slowly placed the fork down. Where did you hear that name? From a neighbor. He looked toward the window. Then back at me. What exactly did she tell you? That wasn't the reaction of a man hearing a stranger's name. It was the reaction of someone hearing a name he had spent years trying not to remember. I reached into my bag. I placed the photograph on the table. Daniel looked at it. The color disappeared from his face. For several seconds, he couldn't speak. Then he whispered, Where did you get this? I leaned back in my chair. That's what I'd like to know. He picked up the photograph. His hands were shaking. Finally, he looked at me and said something I never expected to hear from my husband. I knew Claire. I waited. Then he added, And I was the last person who saw her before she disappeared. I stared at Daniel. You were the last person who saw her? He didn't answer immediately. He kept looking at the photograph as if he were trying to remember something he had spent years forcing himself to forget. How old were you? I asked. 20. And Claire? 27. Why were you here? Daniel put the photograph down. I wasn't here because of Claire. That doesn't answer my question. He rubbed his forehead. I came here with my father. Why? To help him with some work. What kind of work? I don't remember. I almost laughed. You don't remember? It was a long time ago. But you remember Claire. He looked at me. I remember her. Then tell me what happened. Daniel stood up and walked toward the kitchen. I followed. You can't just tell me you were the last person to see a missing woman and then walk away. I know. Then explain it. He turned around. My father told me never to talk about that night. Why? Because he said it would destroy our family. What did he mean? I didn't understand at the time. And now? Daniel looked at the floor. Now I think he was afraid of what would happen if people knew what he had done. I felt a chill. What did your father do? I don't know. Daniel. I swear. I studied his face. He looked genuinely frightened. Not guilty. Frightened. Then what happened that night? He took a long breath. I remember coming to this house around 10. Why so late? My father asked me to bring him something. What? A toolbox. And Claire was here? Yes. Alone. I think so. What did she say? She asked me why I was there. What did you tell her? That my father sent me. Daniel paused. She didn't seem surprised. Why? Because she already knew my father. I sat down. How? He had been buying properties in the area. What did that have to do with Claire? I don't know. You keep saying that. Because I don't. He looked at me. I stayed for maybe 20 minutes. Then, I left. And Claire? She was alive when I left. I swallowed. Are you sure? Yes. What was she doing? Standing near the stairs. Did she seem afraid? Daniel hesitated. Yes. Of you. No. Then who? My father. The room became silent. I thought about Mrs. Warren's warning. Then I remembered something. Why did you want this house? Daniel looked at me. I told you. No. You told me you liked it. I do. That isn't the real reason. He looked away. Daniel. He finally said. I had been looking for this house for years. I felt my stomach drop. Why? Because I wanted to know what happened here. I stared at him. You bought our home to investigate a disappearance? Yes. And you never told me? I didn't know how. You could have started with the truth. I was afraid you would think I was obsessed. I think you were hiding something. He didn't deny it. The next morning, I went back across the street. Mrs. Warren was sitting beneath the same tree. When she saw me, she stood. You told him. It wasn't a question. Yes. What did he say? He admitted he knew Claire. Mrs. Warren closed her eyes. I knew he would eventually. Why didn't you tell me everything? Because I didn't know if he was trustworthy. He's my husband. I know. She sat down. I sat beside her. Tell me about Claire. Mrs. Warren looked toward our house. Claire wasn't planning to disappear. What do you mean? She was preparing to leave town. Why? She had discovered something. What? That several houses on the street were being transferred through shell companies. I frowned. Why would that matter? Because people were being pressured to sell. And Claire refused? She refused to leave. Why? Because she believed someone was trying to take her home. I looked at our house. Did she know Daniel's father? Yes. What was his name? Martin. Daniel's father. What did Martin want from her? Mrs. Warren hesitated. She knew too much. About what? I don't know. That answer was frustrating. But then she added. Claire had a daughter. Yes. She was 5 years old. Where is she now? Mrs. Warren looked at me. I don't know. What? She disappeared too. I felt a chill. What do you mean? After Claire vanished, the little girl was sent to live with relatives. And then, years later, she disappeared from their lives. I stared at her. Was she ever found? No. I thought about the photograph. The little girl with the red bicycle. What's her name? Mrs. Warren looked away. Lena. I repeated it. Lena. Something about the name felt familiar. But I couldn't understand why. When I returned home, Daniel was in the garage. He was moving boxes. What are you doing? Cleaning. You're looking for something. He stopped. Yes. What? He looked at me. An old file. What file? The property records. I noticed a box beside him. On top was a faded label. Martin, private. I picked it up. Daniel quickly took it from my hands. Don't. Why? Because I don't know what's inside. Then why are you looking for it? He sighed. My father left these records behind. What did they say? I haven't opened them. That isn't true. He didn't answer. I reached for the box. This time, he didn't stop me. Inside were property documents, old photographs, and several newspaper clippings. One headline caught my attention. Local woman missing. Police seek information. Claire's photograph was underneath. I picked up another clipping. This one was about a property company. Then I saw something that made my heart stop. The company had the same name as the small real estate firm that sold us our house. I looked at Daniel. Why is the company in your father's files? I don't know. You said you bought this house to find answers. Yes. Then what have you found? He looked at me. One thing. What? The house wasn't supposed to belong to us. What does that mean? The previous owner didn't sell it. I remembered what Mrs. Warren had said. Then how did it end up on the market? Daniel opened one of the documents. There was a transfer record. The property had been transferred from Claire's name to Martin's company. But there was no sale. No purchase agreement. Just a signature. I looked closer. The signature belonged to Claire. But something was wrong. The date was 3 months after she disappeared. I looked at Daniel. That can't be real. No. Then someone forged it. Yes. Who? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. I looked through the rest of the documents. Then I found a photograph. It showed Martin standing outside the house. Beside him was a younger Daniel. And standing on the porch was Claire. The date on the photograph was 2 days before she disappeared. I turned it over. There was a handwritten note. She found out about the basement. I looked at Daniel. What basement? He went silent. I knew immediately. You knew. I suspected. Where is it? He looked toward the floor beneath us. Under the house. That night, Daniel and I moved the old rug in the living room. Beneath it was a section of wooden flooring that looked slightly different. Daniel removed 2 boards. Underneath was a narrow staircase. I stared into the darkness. You knew this was here. Yes. And you were going to search it without telling me? I wanted to protect you. I almost smiled. Everyone keeps saying that. We went downstairs. The basement was smaller than I expected. There were old shelves along the walls. Most were empty. But at the far end was a metal cabinet. Daniel tried opening it. Locked. Then I noticed something carved into the cabinet door. A small red bicycle. The exact same symbol as the bicycle in the photograph of Claire's daughter. I touched it. The cabinet clicked. The door opened. Inside was a single folder. Daniel reached for it. I stopped him. No. He looked at me. This time, we read it together. I opened the folder. The first page was a property map. The second showed several names. And the third contained a photograph of Claire's daughter, Lena. But beneath the photograph was a sentence that made my entire body go cold. Lena was never sent to her relatives. I read the sentence again. Lena was never sent to her relatives. I looked at Daniel. What does this mean? He didn't answer. Daniel. I don't know. You're doing it again. Doing what? Acting like you know more than you're telling me. He looked genuinely frustrated. I don't know where Lena went. Then who wrote this? I have no idea. I turned the page. There was a handwritten list of dates. The first date was the day Claire disappeared. The second was 3 days later. The third was 6 months later. The final date was 20 years after Claire disappeared. That last date was only 8 months ago. I stared at it. Why would someone update this file recently? Daniel looked over my shoulder. I don't know. There was another page behind it. It contained a name. Lena Carter. Then an address. I read it twice. The address was in our town. Daniel. He took the page. That can't be. What? That address belongs to someone I know. Who? He didn't answer. Who? My old accountant. I stared at him. What does your accountant have to do with Lena? I don't know. Then we're going there. Daniel shook his head. Not tonight. Why? Because whoever updated this file may still be watching the house. I looked around the basement. Then why did you bring me down here? I didn't expect the cabinet to open. You knew about the basement. Yes, but not the cabinet. No. I looked at the photograph of Lena again. There was something strange about it. The little girl was smiling at the camera. Behind her was a wall. On that wall was a painting. A large blue house surrounded by trees. I had seen that painting before. Not in the photograph. In our house. It was hanging in the hallway when we moved in. I suddenly stood up. Wait. Daniel looked at me. What? The painting. We ran upstairs. The painting was still hanging in the hallway. I removed it from the wall. Behind it was a small compartment. Inside was a key. Daniel stared at it. What is that? I picked it up. There was a number engraved on it. 14. What does 14 mean? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. But his face told me he had an idea. You do know. No. Daniel. He sighed. My father had a storage unit. Where? 14. I looked at the key. You're saying this opens storage unit 14? Yes. Then let's go. We drove there without telling anyone. The storage facility was almost empty. It was late evening when we arrived. Daniel found the unit. The key fit. Inside were several boxes. Most contained old property documents. One contained photographs. I started looking through them. There were pictures of Claire, Martin, the house, and Lena. But then I found something different. A photograph of a teenage girl. She looked about 16. I didn't recognize her. I turned it over. Lena, 2011. I looked at Daniel. If this is Lena, then she was alive years after Claire disappeared. Yes. And someone knew where she was. Yes. Why was she hidden? Daniel picked up another photograph. It showed Lena standing outside a small apartment. Beside her was an older woman. I recognized the woman immediately. Mrs. Warren. I felt my stomach drop. That's your neighbor. Daniel nodded. So Mrs. Warren knew Lena? Apparently. We found a handwritten note inside the same box. If anything happens to me, ask Evelyn. Who's Evelyn? Daniel looked confused. I don't know. I turned the note over. There was another sentence. She knows what Martin did. I felt a cold wave run through me. What did Martin do? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. We drove back to the house. Mrs. Warren's lights were off. But I could see movement behind her curtains. I crossed the street. Daniel followed. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Finally, the door opened. Mrs. Warren stood there. The moment she saw the photograph in my hand, she stepped backward. Where did you get that? From Daniel's father's storage unit. She stared at Daniel. You found it. What is going on? I asked. She sighed. Come inside. We sat in her living room. Mrs. Warren looked at the photograph. Lena survived. I know. She wasn't sent away. Where was she? Here. Here. In this neighborhood. Why? Because Martin wanted to find her. Why? Because she had something. What? A memory. I frowned. She was 5. She remembered what happened the night Claire disappeared. I looked at Daniel. What did she remember? Mrs. Warren hesitated. She saw Martin arguing with Claire. And then, she saw him take Claire away. Daniel's face went pale. Take her where? Mrs. Warren shook her head. Lena didn't know. Then how did she know Martin was involved? She remembered his car. I looked at the photograph. What happened to Lena? She was moved from house to house. By whom? By me. I stared at her. You protected her? Yes. Why didn't you tell the police? I tried. And? Martin had connections. I felt angry. So everyone just kept quiet? No. Mrs. Warren looked at me. Some people tried to help. Who? Your husband's father. Daniel looked shocked. My father? Yes. He helped Lena? He helped hide her. Why? Because he realized what Martin had done. I looked at Daniel. So your father wasn't protecting Claire? Mrs. Warren nodded. He was protecting Lena. What happened to Claire? Mrs. Warren looked down. We never found her. I felt a strange sadness. Then why did Martin disappear? Mrs. Warren stared at me. He didn't. What? He changed his name. Daniel's face tightened. To what? Mrs. Warren looked directly at him. Daniel. I froze. What? She shook her head. No. Mrs. Warren, what are you saying? She stood and walked toward a cabinet. Inside was an old newspaper. She placed it on the table. The headline read, Local businessman dies in apparent accident. The photograph was of Martin. I looked at the date. 20 years ago. I looked at Daniel. But you said he changed his name. He did. Then who died? His brother. I felt a chill. Martin had a brother? Yes. Who? She looked at Daniel. Thomas. Daniel stared at her. My father. Mrs. Warren nodded. Martin was never your father's real name. I looked at Daniel. He seemed completely lost. Then who is my father? Mrs. Warren didn't answer. Instead, she looked at me. That's the question you should be asking. Before I could respond, there was a loud sound from outside. A car had stopped in front of our house. Its headlights were shining directly through the windows. Mrs. Warren went pale. Turn off the lights. Daniel moved immediately. The room went dark. We watched the car. A man stepped out. He stood beside the vehicle and looked directly at Mrs. Warren's house. Then he turned toward our house. He wasn't hiding. He wanted us to know he was there. Daniel whispered. That's him. Who? My father's old business partner. Richard? Daniel nodded. The man slowly raised his hand. And it was a photograph. He held it against the windshield. Even from across the street, I could see who was in it. Claire. And beside her was a little girl holding a red bicycle. Lena. Then the man placed another photograph beneath it. This one showed me. Taken only weeks earlier. Outside our house. I felt the blood drain from my face. Someone had been watching me long before I knew this story existed. Then Richard smiled. And drove away. For several minutes after Richard drove away, none of us spoke. I kept staring through the dark window. The photograph he had held up was still burned into my mind. It wasn't an old photograph. It was recent. Very recent. It had been taken outside our house. I turned toward Daniel. How long has he been watching me? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. You knew Richard was alive. Yes. And you knew he might be watching us. I suspected. You suspected? My voice rose. You bought this house knowing someone connected to that disappearance might still be watching you, and you brought me here without telling me? Daniel looked ashamed. I thought I could handle it. You thought you could handle it. I laughed bitterly. You've been making decisions about my life without even telling me why. I was trying to keep you safe. I don't need you to decide what I can handle. Mrs. Warren interrupted quietly. Both of you need to understand something. We looked at her. Richard isn't interested in the house. Then what does he want? I asked. You. My stomach tightened. Why? Because he thinks you know where Lena is. But I don't. I know. She looked at Daniel. But Richard doesn't. Daniel sat down. This is getting worse. Mrs. Warren nodded. It was always worse than you thought. I asked her about the old photograph. The one Richard showed us. What about it? Why was Claire holding Lena outside this house? Mrs. Warren looked at the floor. Because Claire had decided to leave. Leave where? She had found someone willing to help her. Who? Your husband's father. Daniel looked up. My father. Yes. But why would he help her? Because he discovered that Martin was planning to take the house from her. I frowned. You said Martin was your husband's father. Mrs. Warren shook her head. No. Then who is Martin? She looked at Daniel. Your uncle. I stared at her. Daniel looked completely confused. I don't have an uncle named Martin. You did. What happened to him? He disappeared. When? The same year Claire disappeared. I thought back to the newspaper. The man who supposedly died in the accident. Then who is the man in that photograph? Martin's brother. Thomas. She nodded. Thomas took Martin's identity after the accident. Daniel stood. Why? Because Martin had been using Thomas's name to conduct business. I felt dizzy. So the man we thought was Martin was actually Thomas? Yes. And Thomas was Daniel's father? Yes. Daniel stared at the floor. My whole life. Mrs. Warren nodded. Your father changed his identity to escape the people Martin had been working with. I looked at her. Then what happened to the real Martin? We don't know. That answer brought another silence. Then I remembered something. The basement. Mrs. Warren looked at me. What about it? The cabinet. Her expression changed. You opened it? Yes. Then you found the photograph. And the records. She looked frightened. What records? The one showing Lena was never sent away. Mrs. Warren closed her eyes. Then Richard knows you found them. I looked at Daniel. What was Lena hiding? Mrs. Warren hesitated. She wasn't hiding anything. Then why was everyone searching for her? Because she remembered something. What? She remembered seeing a man carrying a suitcase into the basement. My heart started beating faster. The basement of our house? Yes. Who was the man? She couldn't remember his face. What was in the suitcase? Documents. About the property? No. Then what? Money. I frowned. Money? A lot of it. Richard and the others had been moving money through property companies. That part suddenly made sense. But there was still something missing. If Lena saw someone carrying money into the basement, why would that make her important 20 years later? Mrs. Warren looked at Daniel. Because she also saw what happened afterward. What? Claire confronted the man. And? She told Lena to run. I swallowed. Did Lena run? Yes. Where? To my house. Mrs. Warren's voice became softer. I hit her. I looked at her. Then what happened to Claire? We never saw her again. I looked down. So Lena was the only witness. Yes. And Richard has spent years trying to find her. Yes. But if Lena disappeared, how did you know she was alive in 2011? Mrs. Warren looked away. Because she came back. Why? To see you. I froze. Me? Yes. When? 8 months ago. The same date written in the basement file. My heart began pounding. What did she want? Mrs. Warren hesitated. She wanted to see the house. Did she come inside? No. Did she tell you why? She said she remembered something. What? She said the house wasn't where the crime happened. I frowned. What does that mean? She said the basement was only a hiding place. For what? Mrs. Warren looked at me. For the evidence. I felt a chill. What evidence? The evidence that could prove who really disappeared that night. I didn't understand. Claire disappeared. Mrs. Warren nodded. But Lena believed someone else disappeared too. Who? She didn't answer. Daniel suddenly looked at her. Thomas. Mrs. Warren shook her head. No. Then who? She whispered. Martin. I stared at her. You're saying Martin was the one who disappeared? Yes. But then who was the man everyone called Martin? Thomas. Daniel sat down slowly. My head was spinning. So Claire wasn't running from Thomas. No. She was running from Martin. Yes. And Thomas helped her. Yes. Then why did Thomas disappear too? Mrs. Warren looked toward the window. Because he went after Martin. And? He never came back. The story had become far more complicated than I expected. But one thing was suddenly clear. My husband hadn't bought this house because he was obsessed with an old mystery. He had bought it because he believed his father had left something unfinished. I turned toward Daniel. Did your father know where Lena was? I don't know. Did he ever mention Claire? Only once. What did he say? Daniel swallowed. He said Claire wasn't missing. I stared at him. What? He said she was waiting. For what? I never knew. I looked at Mrs. Warren. She seemed just as confused. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A photograph appeared. It showed a woman standing outside a small cafe. I didn't recognize her. Then another message appeared. You asked where Lena went. A second message followed. She's closer than you think. I looked at the photograph again. The woman turned slightly toward the camera. I could finally see her face. It was Lena. Older now, but unmistakable. Then the final message appeared. And she wants to meet you alone. I stared at the photograph on my phone. The woman standing outside the cafe was older now, but there was no mistaking her. It was Lena. The little girl from the old photograph had grown up. For years, everyone had treated her like a missing piece of a story. Now she was the one asking to meet me. Alone. Daniel reached for my phone. I pulled it away. No. He looked at me. You can't go. Why? Because we don't know who sent that message. It's her photograph. That doesn't prove it's really her. I looked at Mrs. Warren. Is that Lena? She stared at the screen. Then her eyes filled with tears. Yes. You're sure? I'd recognize her anywhere. I looked at Daniel. I need to hear her story. We can all go. She specifically said alone. That's exactly why you shouldn't go. I understood his fear. But after everything that had happened, I was tired of people deciding what I was allowed to know. I'll meet her. Daniel looked angry. Emily dash. I'll be careful. He didn't answer. The meeting place was a small cafe on the other side of town. I arrived early. I sat near the window and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Finally, a woman walked through the door. She looked at me. I stood. Lena? She nodded. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she sat across from me. You look like Claire. I felt my chest tighten. You knew my mother? No. Then how do you know what she looked like? Lena smiled sadly. Because I remember her. I stared at her. You were 5. I remember more than people think. What happened to her? Lena looked down. I don't know. But you saw her that night. Yes. What did you see? She took a long breath. My mother was arguing with a man. Martin. She nodded. He was angry. What did they argue about? The house. Why? He wanted my mother to leave. Why? She had found something in the basement. I leaned forward. What? A box. What was inside? I don't know. Then how do you know it was important? Because the man was terrified when he saw it. Martin. Yes. What happened next? Lena looked toward the window. He took the box. And your mother? She followed him. Where? Outside. And then? I heard shouting. Did you see him hurt her? No. Did you see her leave? Yes. With him. Lena nodded. That was the last time I saw her. I felt tears in my eyes. Then why did everyone think she disappeared? Because she never came back. I asked the question that had been bothering me. What did you remember about the basement? Lena looked at me. The box wasn't empty. What was inside? Photographs. Of what? People. Which people? She looked directly at me. Your husband. My heart stopped. What? Daniel was in one of them. That can't be. He was young. Where? Standing outside the house. When? The night my mother disappeared. I felt a chill. Daniel was there. Yes. He told me he came here with his father. Lena nodded. He did. Did he see my mother? Yes. Then why didn't he tell me? Maybe because he didn't remember everything. I stared at her. What do you mean? Lena reached into her bag. She pulled out a small photograph. She placed it on the table. It showed Daniel standing beside a car. A younger man was beside him. I recognized him from the old photographs. Thomas. But there was someone else in the background. A third man. I looked closer. It was Richard. I looked at Lena. Why were all 3 of them here? Because they were looking for the box. Did they find it? No. Where was it? Lena pointed at the photograph. Your house. But the cabinet was empty. It wasn't the cabinet. Then where? She tapped the table. Under the floor. I suddenly remembered the basement. The different wooden boards. The hidden cabinet. Maybe we had found only part of it. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I was afraid. Of Richard. Yes. Is that why you disappeared? Lena nodded. My relatives thought I was living with them. But you weren't. No. Where were you? Mrs. Warren helped me. I remembered the photograph of them together. You came back 8 months ago. Yes. Why? I wanted to see if the box was still there. Was it? She shook her head. Someone had already taken it. Who? I don't know. I looked down at the photograph. Then I noticed something. On the back was a date. It was 8 months ago. The same month Lena returned. But beneath the date was a second line. Daniel found it first. My heart sank. I looked at Lena. Did Daniel take the box? She hesitated. I don't know. But you think he did. I think he knows where it went. I stood up. I need to talk to him. Lena grabbed my hand. Wait. What? There's something else. She pulled out another photograph. This one was much newer. It showed Daniel entering the basement of our house. The date was only 3 months ago. I stared at it. He's been going down there. Lena nodded. After you went to sleep. I felt betrayed all over again. Why? Because he was looking for something. What? Lena looked directly at me. The box. I left the cafe immediately. When I arrived home, Daniel was in the kitchen. He looked surprised. You came back early. I placed the photograph on the table. His expression changed. Where did you get this? From Lena. He closed his eyes. So you met her? Yes. Emily, I can explain. Then explain. He sat down. I found the box. My heart sank. When? 3 months ago. Where? Under the floor. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know what was inside. That isn't true. He looked at me. I opened it. What was inside? Photographs. Of my mother? Some. Of you? Yes. Of Richard? Yes. What else? Daniel looked down. There was a video. My stomach tightened. A video of what? Your mother. Alive? He nodded. I couldn't speak. Daniel. She recorded it the night she disappeared. Where is it? I don't have it. Then who does? He looked at me. Richard. The room went silent. Why would you give it to him? I didn't. Then how did he get it? Daniel's voice dropped. Because he followed me. I stared at him. And he took it. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid. Afraid of what? He looked toward the window. That the video would prove something worse than we imagined. What? He finally looked at me. That Claire wasn't taken from this house. I waited. She left willingly. I frowned. Why? Daniel swallowed. Because she was meeting someone. Who? He whispered. My father. I stared at him. Then Daniel said something that changed everything. My father wasn't helping Claire disappear. He was helping her escape from someone in our own family. I couldn't speak for several seconds. My father wasn't helping Claire disappear. He was helping her escape from someone in our own family. Daniel's words kept repeating in my head. Who? He looked at me. I don't know. I almost laughed. Daniel, you've known about this for months. I know. You found the box 3 months ago. Yes. You watched the video. Yes. You knew my mother was alive when she left the house. I didn't know she was alive after that night. And you still didn't tell me. Daniel lowered his head. I was afraid. Of Richard. Of what the video would do to you. I sat across from him. Show me. I can't. Why? Richard has it. Then how do you know what was on it? Because I watched it before he took it. I stared at him. What did my mother say? Daniel hesitated. She said she was leaving because she couldn't trust anyone anymore. Anyone? Not even the people helping her. Did she say where she was going? Yes. Where? She said she was going to meet someone at the old railway station. I froze. The same place where Thomas had supposedly contacted us. Who was she meeting? I don't know. Did the video show the person? No. I thought about Lena. She had told me Claire left willingly. Maybe this was why. But something still didn't make sense. Why did Richard want the video? Because it proved he wasn't responsible for Claire's disappearance. I looked at him. Then who was? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. Then why are you protecting Richard? I'm not. That's exactly what it looks like. Daniel stood up. I've spent years trying to understand what my father did. And? I think he was trying to protect Claire. What about Thomas? Daniel looked confused. What about him? Mrs. Warren said Thomas disappeared. Yes. Lena showed me a photograph of Thomas with you. Daniel stared at me. That photograph was taken the night Claire disappeared. I felt a chill. Then your father was there. Yes. Richard was there too. Yes. And Claire was there. Yes. So what happened? Daniel rubbed his face. I think the answer is in the video. Then we need to get it back. He looked at me. From Richard? Yes. That could be dangerous. I don't care anymore. Before he could respond, my phone rang. It was Lena. I answered. Hello. Her voice sounded frightened. Emily, don't trust Daniel. I looked at him. What happened? I found something. What? Another photograph. Of what? Your mother. I stood up. Where are you? At the old house. Stay there. I hung up. Daniel grabbed his keys. I'm coming. No. He looked at me. You're not going alone. I need to know why she doesn't trust you. Emily dash. I'll call you if I need you. I left before he could stop me. When I reached the old house, Lena was standing in the backyard. She looked nervous. You came. What did you find? She handed me an old photograph. It showed Claire standing beside a man. I recognized him. Thomas. But there was something strange. Claire was holding a baby. I looked at Lena. Who is the baby? She shook her head. I don't know. I turned the photograph over. There was a date. The date was 3 years before Lena was born. Then I noticed another detail. The photograph had been taken at a hospital. The same hospital where I had been born. My heart started racing. Why would my mother have a baby 3 years before you were born? Lena looked at me. Maybe she didn't. I stared at her. What do you mean? Maybe the baby wasn't hers. I looked closer. The baby was wrapped in a white blanket. There was a small hospital bracelet around its wrist. I zoomed in. There was a name. Emily. I felt the world tilt. My name. I looked at Lena. That isn't possible. She shook her head. I know. I heard footsteps behind us. Daniel. He had followed me. Lena immediately stepped away from him. Don't come closer. Daniel stopped. Lena. You lied to her. He looked at me. I didn't. You told her the box was gone. It was. No. Lena pulled another photograph from her pocket. This was inside it. Daniel went pale. The photograph showed a baby. Me. But the date was wrong. I looked at Daniel. What is this? He didn't answer. Daniel. He finally whispered. I found that photograph. When? 3 months ago. You knew. I didn't understand it. You knew enough to hide it. He looked at me. I was trying to find out the truth first. Lena shook her head. Your father knew. Daniel looked at her. What did he know? That Emily wasn't supposed to be in that house. I felt confused. What does that mean? Lena looked at me. The woman who raised you wasn't your biological mother. I froze. Not again. I had spent years believing my family was normal. Now another secret was being placed in front of me. But this time something felt different. I looked at the photograph. The baby was me. The woman holding me was Claire. But Claire wasn't my mother. She was Lena's mother. So why was she holding me? Then Daniel said something quietly. Because Claire saved you. I turned toward him. From what? He looked at the photograph. From my uncle. Martin. He nodded. Martin had been involved in illegal adoptions. My stomach turned. Illegal adoptions? Yes. He was taking children from families and changing their identities. I looked at the photograph again. So, what happened to me? Daniel's voice cracked. Your biological parents died in an accident. And Claire. She discovered what Martin was doing. She took me. She saved you. Then who raised me? Another family. I felt tears fill my eyes. My parents knew? No. They didn't know? They believed you were their biological child. I couldn't understand. Then why did Claire give me away? To keep Martin from finding you. Lena stepped closer. My mother saved both of us. I looked at her. What happened to her? She disappeared because Martin found out. Everything suddenly connected. The house. The basement. The photographs. The missing woman. The child. The false property records. But there was still one question. Where's Claire now? Neither of them answered. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. No number. Just one sentence. She has been alive this entire time. I stared at the screen. Another message appeared. And if you want to see her, come to the railway station tonight. I looked at Daniel. He was already shaking his head. No. I'm going. I won't let you. I stared at him. You don't get to decide that anymore. He looked at me for several seconds. Then he said something I never expected. Because I already met her. My heart stopped. What? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I met Claire 2 months ago. I couldn't breathe. You knew she was alive? Yes. And you hid it from me? I was trying to protect you. I stepped backward. You've been saying that since the beginning. Daniel didn't move. I was wrong. I looked at him. Then tell me where she is. He finally answered. She lives less than 20 minutes from our house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Less than 20 minutes? Daniel nodded. You've known where she is this whole time? Not the whole time. But for 2 months. Yes. I felt betrayed in a way I couldn't explain. You let me believe my mother was dead. I didn't know what to tell you. You could have told me the truth. I was afraid that if you contacted her, Richard would find you. So you decided to keep me in the dark? Daniel looked down. I thought I was protecting you. I shook my head. You keep using that word as if it makes everything okay. It doesn't. Then take me to her. He hesitated. She doesn't want to see you. That hurt more than anything else. What? She told me not to bring you. Why? Because she believes staying away from you is the only way to keep you safe. I laughed through my tears. So everyone gets to decide what happens to me except me. Daniel didn't answer. I walked toward the door. I'm going, Emily. I've spent my entire life being protected from truths I had the right to know. He followed me. Then let me at least come with you. I stopped. Fine. We drove in silence. The address was a small cottage on the edge of town. It was surrounded by trees and looked completely ordinary. Daniel parked outside. My hands were shaking. What if she's really there? She is. What if she doesn't want me? Daniel looked at me. She has wanted to see you for years. Then why didn't she come? because she believed Richard was still looking for her. We walked to the front door. Daniel knocked. No answer. He knocked again. A few seconds later, the door opened. An older woman stood there. Her hair was gray. Her face was thinner than the woman in the old photograph. But her eyes were the same. I knew immediately. Claire. She stared at me. Her hand went to her mouth. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then she whispered, "Emily." I began crying. "You know me?" She nodded. "I've always known you." I stepped inside. She closed the door behind us. For several minutes, we simply looked at each other. Finally, I asked the question that had been inside me for years. "Why did you leave me?" Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't." I froze. "What?" "I never abandoned you." "Then what happened?" She sat down. "I was trying to save you." She told me everything. Martin had been involved in a network that secretly changed children's identities after arranging illegal adoptions. He wasn't the only person involved. There were lawyers, business owners, and people who used property companies to move money. Claire discovered the operation after finding documents in the basement. When she realized one of the children involved was me, she panicked. My biological parents had died unexpectedly. Martin wanted to place me with another family and erase every connection to the original records. Claire couldn't allow that. She took me. But she knew she couldn't keep me. So she arranged for another family to raise me under a different identity. They believed I was their biological daughter? Yes. Why? Because that was the only way Martin wouldn't look for you. I wiped my tears. What about Lena? Claire looked toward her daughter. She was the only person who knew where you went. Lena nodded. She was 5, I said. I know. How could she remember? She remembered enough. Claire explained that Thomas helped her hide the documents. He was actually Daniel's father. But Martin discovered what they were doing. On the night Claire disappeared, Thomas arranged for her to leave. But Richard found out. He followed them. Did Richard hurt Thomas? Claire shook her head. I don't know. What happened to him? He disappeared. And you? I went into hiding. For 23 years? Yes. Why didn't you contact me? Because every time I considered it, someone connected to Martin appeared. She looked at me. I watched you from far away. I couldn't stop the tears. You knew where I was? Yes. Did you know I got married? Yes. Did you know Daniel? Yes. That surprised me. You knew about him? Claire smiled sadly. Thomas trusted him. I looked at Daniel. You knew my mother before you married me? Yes. How? Because my father told me where she was. Then why didn't you tell me? I was afraid the moment you knew, Richard would find you. Claire reached for my hand. I am sorry. I looked at her. I spent my entire life thinking nobody knew the truth. We knew. Everyone knew except me. She nodded. Yes. I wanted to be angry. But looking at her face made it difficult. She had spent 23 years living under another name. She had watched her daughter grow up from a distance. She had given up her entire life so I could have won. Then Claire said something that changed the room. Richard wasn't the person you should be afraid of. I looked at her. Who then? Martin. My heart stopped. But Martin disappeared. No. Claire shook her head. Martin never disappeared. Then where is he? She looked at Daniel. Your husband knows. I turned toward him. Daniel's face had gone completely pale. What does she mean? He whispered. I thought he was dead. Claire shook her head. He changed his name. What's his name now? Before she could answer, there was a knock at the door. Everyone froze. Another knock. Then a man's voice came from outside. Claire. She looked terrified. Don't open it. Daniel moved toward the window. He looked outside. Then stepped back. It's Richard. I felt my heart race. Richard's voice came again. I know you're all inside. Claire grabbed my hand. You need to leave through the back. No. Emily, listen to me. I've spent my whole life running from a truth I didn't even know existed. She looked at me. This isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment you disappeared. Daniel opened the back door. Go. We moved toward the garden. But before we could leave, another car pulled into the driveway. Someone stepped out. An older man. Daniel stopped. He stared at him. No. I looked at the man. He looked directly at Daniel. Then at Claire. And finally at me. Claire whispered. Martin. The man smiled. Hello, Daniel. Daniel looked like he couldn't breathe. You're dead. Martin laughed softly. No. He looked at me. I've been waiting a very long time to meet you. Nobody moved. Martin stood at the end of the driveway as if he had every right to be there. Daniel looked at him in disbelief. You're supposed to be dead. Martin smiled. That was the idea. Claire stepped in front of me. You don't come near her. Martin's expression changed. You've spent 23 years making this unnecessarily complicated. You destroyed enough lives. I protected my business. You took children from their families. I gave them new lives. You stole their identities. Martin shrugged. You can call it whatever you want. Daniel stepped forward. Where is my father? For the first time, Martin's smile disappeared. Thomas made a choice. What choice? He chose Claire. And you punished him? Martin didn't answer. Claire looked at Daniel. Thomas tried to expose everything. What happened to him? Martin finally said. He survived. Daniel froze. Where is he? Martin looked toward the road. Not far. Then we heard another car approaching. An older man stepped out. He was thinner than I expected, with gray hair and a walking stick. Daniel stared at him. Dad? Thomas looked at his son. I'm sorry. Daniel walked toward him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then they hugged. I stood beside Claire, watching them. After 23 years, a family that had been separated by fear was finally standing together again. But Martin was still there. Richard appeared behind him. I suddenly understood. They had never been working separately. They had been protecting the same secret. Thomas looked at me. Emily, there is something you need to know. What? The evidence is still in the house. The basement. He nodded. The box you found wasn't the original. I looked at Daniel. What? The real evidence was hidden somewhere else. Where? Thomas pointed toward our house. In the wall behind the old fireplace. We returned to the house with Claire and Thomas. Martin and Richard didn't follow. Instead, Thomas called the authorities and finally gave them the information he had kept hidden for decades. Behind the fireplace, we found a metal case. Inside were property records, photographs, financial documents, and names. Dozens of names. Families. Children. Payments. False identities. Everything Martin had spent years trying to hide. There was also a small video recorder. Thomas explained that Claire had recorded the original evidence before she disappeared. The video showed Claire speaking directly to the camera. She explained what she had discovered. She named Martin. She named the people who helped him. And she explained why she had taken me away. I watched the recording with tears in my eyes. At the end, Claire looked directly into the camera. She said she didn't know whether she would ever see me again. But she hoped that one day I would learn the truth. Not because she wanted me to hate anyone. Because she wanted me to understand that none of what happened was my fault. That sentence broke something inside me. For years, I had wondered why my life had been surrounded by strange gaps and unanswered questions. Now I finally knew. I hadn't been abandoned. I had been protected. But protection had created another kind of pain. The investigation that followed lasted months. The evidence was enough to connect Martin and Richard to the operation. Several other people were also questioned. Some cooperated. Others denied everything. But the documents were too detailed to simply disappear. Martin was finally forced to answer for what he had done. Richard was questioned as well. The truth that had been buried for more than 20 years was finally out. Thomas stayed in town. He spent the first few weeks getting to know Daniel again. They had missed most of each other's adult lives. There were awkward conversations. Angry conversations. Sometimes they simply sat together without speaking. But they were rebuilding something. Claire stayed with Lena. For the first time, mother and daughter didn't have to hide. And I had something I never thought I would have. A mother. Not the mother who raised me. Not the mother I had known as a child. But the woman who had saved me when I was too young to understand what was happening. I visited her often. At first, I didn't know what to call her. Mom felt strange. Claire felt too distant. One afternoon, she smiled and said, "You don't have to choose." So I stopped trying. Our relationship grew slowly. Not like a movie. Not overnight. Just two people learning how to know each other. Months later, Daniel and I stood in the backyard of our house. The same house that had started everything. I looked at the upstairs windows. For a long time, I had hated that place. Now it felt different. Daniel took my hand. "Do you regret buying this house?" I smiled. "Sometimes." He laughed. "Fair enough." Then he became serious. "I should have told you everything from the beginning." "Yes, I know. You were trying to protect me." "I was. But you made the same mistake everyone else made." "What mistake?" "You decided that keeping me in the dark was safer than letting me choose." He nodded. "I understand that now." I squeezed his hand. "And I forgive you." He looked at me. "Really?" "Eventually." He laughed. "That sounds about right." We kept the old photograph of Claire and Lena. We also kept the photograph of me as a baby. Not because we wanted to remember the secrets. Because we wanted to remember the people who had fought to protect us. One evening, Claire came over for dinner. She sat at our table beside Lena. Thomas sat across from Daniel. For the first time, nobody was hiding anything. No fake names. No secret rooms. No missing people. No locked boxes. Just a family sitting together. It wasn't the family I had grown up believing I had. It was something more complicated. And somehow it felt more real. Before Claire left that night, she hugged me. She whispered, "I wish I could give you back the years." I hugged her tighter. "You can't." She pulled away. "I know, but you can be here now." She smiled. And that was enough. A year later, we finally renovated the basement. We removed the old cabinet. We replaced the wooden floor. But I asked the contractor to leave one small section untouched. The exact place where the original evidence had been hidden. Not as a memorial to the secrets. As a reminder. Because I learned something through all of this. Sometimes the truth doesn't arrive gently. Sometimes it tears apart everything you thought you knew. Sometimes the people who love you make terrible decisions while believing they're protecting you. And sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean pretending those decisions never hurt. It means accepting that people can make mistakes, regret them, and still deserve a chance to make things right. For 23 years, my family lived around a missing woman, a hidden child, a false identity, and a secret that almost destroyed everyone involved. But eventually, the truth came home. And when it did, I realized something I had never understood before. The house wasn't the place where my family lost everything. It was the place where we finally found each other. If you discovered that your entire childhood had been shaped by a secret meant to protect you, would you forgive the people who kept the truth from you?